Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, welcome to Washington and welcome to Bloomberg TV and radio. It's great to see you. You have been a member of Congress for less than 24 hours, and we were compelled by your words following your swearing in. We have a lot of things we want to ask you about, but I'm going to start with what you said, highlighting the fact that 50 days saw 800,000 Arizonans left without access to the basic services that every constituent deserves. You called it an abuse of power, Congresswoman. Is there anything you can do about it?
Well, my hope is that we're going to be able to put forward bipartisan legislation to prevent that from ever happening again. No one person should ever be able to silence over 800,000 people, and it doesn't matter what party you are. This is an abuse regardless, and we never want to see it again.
Did you have a conversation with House Speaker Mike Johnson about this? Did the two of you sit down and talk about what happened here?
Oh, no. So right at the very end, after I was sworn in publicly, made my speech, said hi to a couple members, I was asked to sort of whisk off because Speaker Johnson was ready to do like the formal picture. And so I walked over and he said, well, this was never personal. And I said, it felt a little personal. It really did. And I said, if you ever want to know what it is that we were actually able to do or not do in our office without a budget, I'm happy to talk about it because we literally could do nothing. And then, he said what he said publicly. One of the questions with the gaggle was, what took so long? I said, oh, that's not my question. That would go over to the speaker.
Well, of course, a lot of people speculated that this had something to do with the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files, knowing that you were going to sign on to a discharge petition, which you did moments after your swearing in. And there's a big question about what happens next here, Congresswoman. It looks like there will be a vote next week, realizing there might not be an appetite for this in the Senate. Will these files actually be made public?
I hope so. I hope that it passes the House without any issue and that the pressure then goes to senators. Because regardless of who is implicated, no one should want the label of protecting pedophiles. And, I talked to some survivors today, and I said, one of the things that I would do is go and target your senators, talk to them about why it's important for them to show unity in this, and then go and call some of their constituents and make sure that there's a connection there. When you hear from your own constituents about an issue, it's that much more meaningful. And I think that it would be very important for constituents throughout the nation to reach out to their senators and let them know that they expect them to vote in favor of releasing the Epstein files.
Well, those are constituents to senators. Are there any conversations happening between the chambers on how this is going to go between your now new colleagues in the Senate and the other members in the House?
Well, I'm assuming that there is some conversation amongst leadership, but I don't know any specifics about that.
This is a heck of a time to be joining the House of Representatives, Congresswoman. We spoke with Democrats and Republicans over the past 24 hours, some of them senior lawmakers who said this is as bad as we've ever seen it. And I know we can go through history and probably find worse times. No one's being caned on the floor yet. But I'm wondering what you're feeling as you join your colleagues here in Washington, because there's a sense of anger and frustration in the air today, even after the government reopened, that's taken a lot of us by surprise.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of separation, partisanship. This administration has done what they could to increase those divides. When you look at what Trump has done in pitting his own party against each other, really, it's just to further his own agenda, which has nothing to do with improving the lives of the American people. And so I think it's very difficult if you are a defender of Trump to put your neck out right now when he's done everything he could to make sure that it's really about him and his supporters and nobody else.
Well, what, of course, led us to this moment is that we saw negotiations try and ultimately fail to get an extension when it comes to the premium tax subsidies related to the Affordable Care Act. I'm wondering what you are advocating for now as a member of the House. Are you looking for an extension to this, or is this something that's going to have to see a whole new plan come together ahead of that deadline at the end of December?
Well, you know what's really interesting is that the Republicans have had critical things to say about the Affordable Care Act since its inception in 2010. They have had 15 years to work on a better plan. All they do is throw stones at it, but don't actually come to the table with any real solutions. So I don't think it's the Democrats' responsibility to come up with a solution that they don't see a problem with. If we want to work to improve the ACA, I'm all for that. Universal health care, I think, should be the base of what the American people deserve. So I'm in favor of universal health care, period. And then we can get all of the big money out of this system. That, I think, would be ideal. But here we are. This is not a problem that Democrats have. This is a problem that Republicans have. And who's going to have a bigger problem is every single one of those people who voted against extending the ACA benefits. They're going to hear very clearly from their constituents.
Well, of course, there's not a lot of time to reinvent the healthcare system here in America. So if it's anything short of extending these subsidies, it might get a little complicated by January 30th, Congresswoman. In that world, if there's no deal, do we shut down again?
And that's what actually one of the things I did speak to Speaker Johnson about is why do we continue to have piecemeal CRs? Why can't we negotiate an entire budget for the year? I don't know any functioning company or organization that does budgeting this way. And he said, I would love to have that, but there's no interest. I said, I think part of the problem is you're not bringing to the table things that both parties want to work on. I mean, that was indicative of this clean CR that left the House, went to the Senate, was voted down 13 times. It had no input from Democrats at all. When both chambers, and especially the House, is so close, why wouldn't you try to work a solution that's going to include some of the things that Democrats could support and then vote and then send a package that is a bipartisan package to the Senate? He didn't do that. He chose to keep the House closed. And I think it's very telling in our economic reality right now in this nation that the House of Representatives has been working 19 days in 4 months.
Well, Congresswoman, in the final minute that we have you, I'm curious, have you gotten your committee assignments yet? And are there any that you're keen to join, considering as we're laying out it's an understatement to say it's going to be a busy legislation season coming up?
Right. Well, I did ask for education and workforce and natural resources. I was asked to rank those if what would be the one if I only had to pick one, and I chose education and workforce. I am willing to work on any committee that I feel my background would be beneficial, but I also am willing to learn because I think I have so much to learn, and I think that it is an opportunity for me to get stronger in a lot of the different areas. So with that, I am open to it, but I would love to put my 20 years as a school board member in support of rebuilding the devastation that this administration has done to the Department of Education. But I'm willing to learn.
All right. Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva joining us on her first day sworn in as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives representing Arizona's 7th District. Thanks so much for joining us here on Bloomberg.